Hey guys, it's me again. I took a look at your counterargument paragraphs that you submitted for Writer's Notebook entry number 52. Most of you guys did a perfect job. You were practicing that turn away, turn back format that we talked about in class before the break, and you handled that really, really well. Those of you who didn't, we're all making the same mistake. So I wanted to take a moment, go over those mistakes, and walk you through the process again. So what you see in front of you is just a simple thesis statement that I stole from the internet. You know, just looking for basic topics to give me an idea. Electric vehicles are a solution to a global problem. Now, to global pollution. Here we go. I can read, I promise. So electric vehicles are a solution to global pollution. The reason why I'm starting with a definitive thesis is because that's step one where some of you went wrong. I purposefully gave you a thesis about online schooling so that you could not stray from that position. The position was already given to you. So a lot of you guys, after you brainstormed your possible counter arguments, you flipped your position and you went to online schooling is actually bad for students, which is okay if that had been your thesis from the beginning. But when you're writing an argument, you have to have a line of reasoning where all of your body paragraphs support that position that's in the thesis statement. The counter argument gets a little tricky because you start off by giving examples from the other side. So that's where a lot of people get turned around. It's like once they start going down that path of talking about what the other side would say, they get persuaded by their own examples and they switch their position. So we're going to walk through one more time that process of turning away from your thesis statement and then turning back. The turn back is what a lot of you guys missed. So pay attention to how I bring myself back to my thesis statement, bring myself back to my position as I write this paragraph. Now, step one is just to brainstorm a list of ideas that the opposition could use against you. I'm doing this off the top of my head because I'm trying to mimic that format of the AP exam where we can't look information up. So, possible counter arguments about electric vehicles. The biggest one that I can think of is that they're just switching their form of energy. It's not going completely off the grid. In fact, it's going towards electricity, which most electricity, at least in our region, relies on coal, which is also bad for the environment. So I'm going to put possible counters. It does not solve the problem, just switches the grid, switches the source. Another possible counter is that they're not convenient. In order to get gas in a regular car, you can just stop at a gas station. They're everywhere. But if I'm thinking about an electrical vehicle, I need to find a place to plug in. So I need to find a source. So I'm going to put not convenient. They're also, people might argue, pretty expensive. If you look at the cost of a Tesla, I don't think I'm affording that on a teacher's salary. So, oh, look, I don't know how to spell this morning either. We'll fix that. There we go. Too expensive. What else could I put? Maybe there's not as many dealerships, not easily accessed, not as many varieties. I don't think I've seen an electric truck. I'm sure that it exists, but I haven't seen. Oh yeah, there was the one that Tesla made. It was really ugly though. So not as many varieties, not as much choice. Okay, I'm going to leave it at 4. My brain's starting not to function. It's 6 in the morning over here at the Markey household. I have to wake up and do this before I homeschool Lorna. So things aren't working as crisply as they would. All right, let's move on to the paragraph. So if you remember when we talked about this in class, when we watched that lovely 8 Mile video with Eminem, you guys remember that? It was fun times. The first thing we do is we turn away. So if you remember the video, Eminem went in the epic rap battle at the end. He started off by listing all of the things that the guy that he was battling against was going to say against him. I'm white. I live in a trailer with my mom. All of these horrible things that he knew was ammo against him. So that's what you do in a counter argument. You begin with the other person's ammunition. You basically take the wind out of their sails. Take everything that they could say against you, you take it away from them. You don't allow them any leverage over you. So you begin with like a trigger phrase. Some may argue, others say, some people might think. So I'm going to begin with some may argue. Oh, again, there's that spelling this morning. So I'm going to start with some may argue that electric vehicles don't really solve the pollution issue because they just switch the grid. Electricity relies on coal. Okay, so some may argue that electric vehicles don't really solve the pollution issue because they switch I can't read this morning either. Here we go. We're going to start again. Let's back that up. Just pretend that if you're in third hour, I was interrupted by Yahia or Cameron saying something very inappropriate to Cody. If you're in second hour, just pretend that somebody announced something about Hurley and I got off track. If you're in first hour, just pretend I'm sleepy and I'm stumbling through it the way that I am right now because, well, that's what's going on. Okay, back to the paragraph. Some may argue that's my signal phrase that I'm turning against myself, that electric vehicles don't really solve the pollution issue because they switch the grid that is their power source. Electricity relies on coal in many parts of the United States, and coal is just as bad for the environment as oil. So I've turned away. I've presented an example that is against myself. Now I need to bring it back to myself. Just the same way that there are trigger phrases that I'm turning away, there are trigger phrases that I am turning back. Now, I am not going to deny that this is true. That's the other mistake that people make for counter arguments. They start to just say, well, that's wrong, and then they move on. Or they counter this part with a part that's completely irrelevant. So if I'm talking about the power source, then they just say, well, but electric vehicles are really quiet and they don't make any noise. Well, that doesn't have anything to do with pollution. So I have to counter it in the same area, in the same category that my example from the other side comes from. So first, my trigger phrase. These are words like however, although, even though. I'm going to plug those in, and that's the turn. Remember, we talked about words like but. If you ignore everything that comes before the but, she's a really nice girl, but you know something bad's coming. The same thing happens with those trigger phrases. However, although, I present information, and then once I say that, however, my reader knows everything that came before doesn't matter. I'm going to switch. So I'm going to begin with although. got stuck. That often happens to me when I'm writing. I'm sure it happens to you too. I know what I want to say. My words aren't coming together. So what I do when I get in that situation is I go back and I reread what I wrote, which is fine because I have to read it to you guys anyway. Not that I have to, but it's in my teacher brain that I actually say it out loud and not just sit here silently and type. So if we take a look at my signal phrase, although this is true, I am turning back. I recognize that that's true. I'm not saying that it's wrong, but I'm going to turn back. Many communities are starting to look at alternative power sources such as wind and solar. My husband drives an electric vehicle and is able to charge his car. Oh, there's my brain again. 6 in the morning, guys. Car off of a solar panel every day at work. What that means is that his car has zero impact on the environment. As communities invest in alternative power sources, the, let's say, problems associated with coal pollution start to lessen. So, as communities invest in alternative power sources, the problems associated with coal pollution start to lessen, and the electric car helps begin to attack problem number 2, our reliance on refined oil. Okay? Now, if I wanted to keep going, I could then present another one of the counter arguments that I put up top. Maybe I want to start talking about the convenience of it, the fact that I can't just plug in everywhere, the fact that everybody doesn't have access to a charging panel at work the way that my husband does. And then I would bring up other information that I could put in there. There's an app that I have on my phone. There's an app that he has on his phone, and it shows us where all of the charging stations are that are close to us. And they are everywhere. You can find them at shopping centers, you can find them in parking garages, and just start talking about how I could get around that problem. So although I might not have a charging station at home, I can plug in while I'm shopping for my groceries at Meijer. And then I come out and I have power in my car. It's like the gas fairies come. So I have to stop with my car. I have to stop at, I just touched my microphone. Hopefully that wasn't too bad for you. I have to stop at a gas station. But if I were plugging my car in while I was doing my grocery shopping, it would be charged up when I came out. If not fully, at least partially, and then I could go about my business. So the main thing that I want you guys to get from this is that turn away and then turn back. So I'm going to post this onto Google Classroom. That's probably where you're already seeing it, and onto my YouTube channel. Remember, you can send me any questions that you need via Remind, on my email, or on Google Classroom, and I'll get back to you as soon as I see them. So if you have not done your paragraph yet, if you're one of the few that has not submitted it and you're watching this video, make sure that you keep in your head the turn away, turn back process. I'm also going to make sure that I move the PowerPoint that we used in class from last week's agenda. I'm going to put it up into the week 1 set of files. So if you feel like you need to review that, you feel like you need to look at the initial notes in the videos, then you have that at your access. All right? Hopefully you're staying safe. Hopefully you're staying healthy. Miss you guys.